Welcome to Santa Isabel Nature Center for our second installment of Hawktober 2020. Today you're going to meet two examples of small birds of prey that you find in different areas of San Diego County. Just like the large hawks, they have all the same adaptations. They just come in a smaller, powerful package and hunt a variety of smaller prey. So this is Tecolote, a western screech owl. This is a small species of owl that we have in our wooded areas. They like to nest in hollowed out cavities that you might find in an old oak tree or pine tree. So this might look like a cute little owl, but actually he's quite a capable predator. He has all those same adaptations and hunting tools that we talked about in the larger birds of prey. In addition to having a sharp beak for ripping their food apart, talons to capture and seize their food, and great eyes, they also have some other adaptations that enable them to find and maneuver through the night when it's dark. So first of all, they have wonderful eyesight that's adapted for nighttime vision. That's one adaptation very specialized for owls. The second is owls have really good hearing. Believe it or not, if we had a mouse that ran across the floor, if they were within 20 feet of that mouse, they would actually hear those little footsteps and they would be able to tell which direction they're coming from. If you were an owl, like Tecolote, the western screech owl, you would have one ear high and the other ear would be a little bit lower on the opposite side of the head. And because of their asymmetrical location, they can pinpoint where sounds are coming from when it's going left and right and up and down. So they're really able to find their food sometimes just by listening for it and then actually engaging it or grabbing it. The third is they have silent flight. So Tecolote and other owls have specialized soft feathers, and they have a little hair-like fringe at the leading edge of each of their flight feathers. That acts to dampen the sound of the wind as it goes across the wing. So when an owl flaps or glides, unlike another bird like a hawk or a pigeon, they don't make a whooshing sound with their wings. Their flight is very quiet. And that's important for two reasons. First of all, the things that owls are trying to hunt at night usually have really good hearing too. So they have to be very stealthy or sneaky when they're trying to catch their food. The second reason that silent flight is important is because it allows them to use their awesome hearing very well. If you think about it, if you had really sensitive hearing, but every time you moved, your shoes squeaked or your pants brushed against each other and they made a sound, your awesome hearing wouldn't hear anything except the sounds your body was making. So that silent flight is really important for helping find their food, sneak up on it, and tell where it's coming from. So Tecolote can't take care of himself in the wild. You might have noticed one eye looks really different than the other. So Tecolote's left eye was injured and he is completely blind on that side. What we think happened is, as a young chick, he was in his nest, maybe learning how to fly. Even though this is a predator, they become prey for other larger owls. So it's very likely that something like a great horned owl or maybe a hawk found him in the daytime, tried to grab him, and pierce that eye, so it injured that eye, so he has no vision out of that left eye anymore. So Tecolote is kind of a regional Spanish name for owl. It's a generic name for the owls that have the feather tufts on the top of his head, and I'll try and show you that right here. He's got two tufts of feathers on each side, one on each side of his head, and they kind of look like the ears of a cat. So in some regions where they speak Spanish, like Central America, Tecolote would refer to a large cat. Locally, we have a species of owl, the barn owl, that makes a screaming, hissing sound, and it's very scary if you don't know what it is. But in fact, screech owls on the West Coast don't make that screaming sound. They sound like this. So one of the adaptations that allow owls to be so well adapted to seeing and finding their food at night is their vision. First of all, they have many more light-sensitive eye cells called rods in their eyes than we do. Unfortunately, they don't have any cones. So those are the color-sensitive vision cells, but they don't need them. So they see very well in dim light because of all those eye cells, the rods, but also their eyes are massive compared to yours and mine. So if you look at him, his eyes, they look like they're size appropriate. But the truth is, if your eyes are the same size as Tecolote's eyes, I want you to imagine a grapefruit. Everybody hold up an imaginary grapefruit, one in each hand. Hold up that grapefruit to your eye. This is how large your eyes would be if they were the same size as an owl. So owls' eyes, like we talked about, are so large and they're fixed in their socket. Unlike us, owls don't have any muscles to move the eye within the skull. If you think about it, we can move our eyes up and down while keeping our face locked. Well, owls can't move their eyes whatsoever inside their skull. So to counteract that, they actually have almost twice as many cervical vertebrae or neck bones than mammals do. So if you take 2 fingers and feel the middle of your neck, between the top of your head and the upper part of your back, you've got 7 neck bones. Tecolote and most birds here have 13, so twice as many as us. An owl like Tecolote can rotate his head 3/4 of the way around, or 270 degrees. So if I were an owl, I could move my head to the right, and instead of stopping right here, my head would actually be over on the other shoulder. So they have way more ability to move their head than we do. And that's another really important adaptation owls and most birds have. Welcome to Santa Isabel Nature Center and our current installment of Hawktober. With me today is Violet, a female American Kestrel. American Kestrel, the smallest falcon in North America, and this little gal, believe it or not, is full grown. She'll never get any larger. She's an example of a small predator. She has all the same awesome attributes that the larger birds of prey have: the sharp beak, the awesome eyesight, and the sharp and powerful feet. It just comes in a much smaller package. So this is a true falcon. Falcons are denoted from having that wing shape like she just showed you. They've got that slender, tapered wing, unlike hawks, which have large, broad wings for soaring. Falcons are the fastest and most agile of all the birds of prey. So vision is really important for these birds. Falcons have a special adaptation that's unique to falcons only, and that's that distinctive set of stripes on each side of her eye. You notice on each side of her eye, she's got these vertical stripes. We call those mustaches or mallard stripes. And they have that for the same reason a football player or a baseball player would put the eye black underneath their eye. That's when they're looking up in the sky to find the ball, and whether it's a bright, sunny day and the sun is out, or the stadium lights lighting up the night sky, that eye black absorbs the glare from the sun or the light, so it helps them see better. So that's a falcon adaptation, the mallard stripe. American kestrels are one of very few birds of prey you can tell male and female apart just by looking at them. The female kestrel, like Violet here, has a brown chest with dark streaking on the front. The male would have a creamy colored chest with tiny little black freckles and a little bit of rosy red right underneath the neck. The male also has a beautiful blue wing and a pronounced blue bonnet on the top of his head. So if you get into birding, American kestrels are one of the birds that you can tell boys and girls or males and females apart. So again, this is a very small predator. She is going to hunt things on the wing like small birds, songbirds. They also will grab stuff on the ground, maybe a reptile like a fence post lizard, and they eat a lot of insects and small mammals. Most falcons only grab things out of the sky. American kestrels will hunt both things on the ground and in the air. So American kestrels, all falcons, hawks, and eagles have an interesting face compared to an owl, which you're going to meet a little bit later. If you look at a Violet, you'll notice she's got 2 eyes, and then between those eyes is her beak, and her head is kind of a cone-shaped head. That beak really interrupts her vision. So we know that American kestrels and falcons and daytime birds of prey, with that beak in between their 2 eyes, they have a wide field of view. When they're hunting something, they're high in the sky, and they're surveying a large area of land underneath them, and they have a wide field of view. Owls, on the other hand, have a flat face, and their eyes are both on the front of their face, much more like ours. So when an owl hunts, they're actually looking and listening for something that's much closer to them than, say, a hawk or a falcon would. So these guys are looking for things far off in the distance, and their vision is well adapted for that. Hawks and falcons and owls and eagles, their vision's usually about 8 times, maybe 10 times more powerful than yours and mine. So what that means is if you look through a pair of binoculars and you see something far away in great detail, that's kind of what a hawk or a falcon is seeing. Their vision is amplified or magnified much more than ours. And what they do is they find something way off in the distance using their powerful eyesight, and they're able to start an attack, and they're much more likely to be able to sneak up onto it because they're seeing it from such far away. So a lot of the American kestrels we see in San Diego are year-round residents. They actually live their whole life cycle out in San Diego. We do get some that come from northern areas where they have to migrate because it gets very cold where they live. But American kestrels do nest in San Diego. So American kestrels are kind of unique for some birds. They're cavity nesters. And what that means is they don't build a stick nest like you might see in a tree in your yard. They like to find a hole in a tree or a place where they can get out of the sun to lay their eggs and make their nest. So the American kestrel is found all throughout San Diego in all the different environment types because they are very adaptable. They'll eat a wide variety of things like birds they catch out of the air to insects they find on the ground. They can live near the beach, very low elevations. They can live in grasslands like we have in Ramona, and they can live in higher elevations like here at Santa Isabel. If you see a bird that has its wings stretched out and they're hovering in one place, maybe like a kite on a string, that's possibly an American kestrel. One of the hunting techniques American kestrels use is they will turn into the wind, put their wings out, and then pivot their wings so they can hover like a helicopter. And what they're doing is they're using their powerful eyesight to decide if that thing on the ground is something they want to catch. Maybe a small lizard, could be a mouse, or even a cricket or a grasshopper. So when they see something that might be prey, they turn into the wind and hover like a helicopter. That's kind of unique for American kestrel. And it's actually a bird-eat-bird world out there. Even though this is a very skillful predator with some amazing hunting abilities, larger birds of prey will eat American kestrels. So one of the birds of prey that's common in San Diego today that wasn't very common 20 years ago is the Cooper's hawk. So Cooper's hawks make their living eating mostly other birds. And we noticed that locally in the past 2 decades, the numbers of American kestrels are falling off a little bit. And we think part of that reason is the Cooper's hawks are doing so well, and they're eating some of the American kestrels that we share San Diego with. One more thing that's been difficult for American kestrels is because they are cavity nesters, and to manage our environments for fire dangers, we're clearing a lot of dead brush and trees that provide those cavities for American kestrels. So American kestrels are really crafty. They'll find a cavity and put their nest just about anywhere you could imagine in San Diego County, whether it's a tree, whether it's between 2 tiles on a roof, or even between 2 freeway signs. They're very adaptable and widespread. American kestrels are much more abundant than you might imagine. A lot of times you might see an American kestrel and not realize it's a predator, like a bird of prey, because they're such a small bird. So you might wonder, why is Violet with us here today? Well, Violet was actually raised by people after she fell out of the nest. Since she was raised by people, she doesn't have the natural instincts or know how to take care of herself in the wild. So she's one of our animal ambassadors that lives with us in county parks, and she'll live with us for the rest of her days. We have a special license that allows us to take care of birds of prey like this and some of the owls you're going to meet. We only take care of birds that can't be released into the wild. In the wild, predators like owls, hawks, and falcons play a really important role in maintaining a balance in ecology. And what I mean by that is if we didn't have predators like hawks, even snakes and coyotes, things that eat plants like rabbits, mice, and rats, they would become so numerous, they'd eat so much of the plant life that's out there, that their populations would start to decline, and other animals that rely on plants and trees to nest in, to eat, they would start to diminish too. So having a healthy population of predators in any given environment is actually really important. And that's why we only use animal ambassadors like Violet who have something wrong with them and can't be released to the wild. Thank you so much for joining us. Catch us next week right here on YouTube. Visit us at sdparks.org to find out about more recreation opportunities and wildlife in San Diego County.